is Friday, April 14th, 1865. Good evening. Breaking news. President Lincoln has been injured by gunshot while attending Ford's Theater earlier tonight. Around 10:15 p.m., while attending the hip play Our-American Cousin, the presumed assailant, John Wilkes Booth, appears to have shot President Lincoln in the back of the head while he sat in the president's box beside the First Lady, Major General Rathbone, and his wife. Lincoln was immediately rushed across the street to the Peterson boarding house, where he is in critical condition at this moment under the care of Dr. Charles A. Lee Alley. The Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph K. Barnes, has been summoned to take over the care of the president and should arrive sometime tomorrow. It appears that Booth has made his escape by executing a daring jump from the president's box down onto the stage and made a run for it. He is currently at large and on the run from authorities. In a separate story this evening, Secretary of State John H. Seward was attacked at knife point at home in his bed while recovering from a prior violent carriage accident. After a scuffle with Seward's son, the unknown male assailant made his escape, and the authorities are searching for him now. Secretary of State Seward suffered many knife wounds, and his current condition is unknown. This is Rena Rowe reporting for a UNN emergency news update. Good night. Today is Saturday, April 15th, 1865. Good evening. Breaking news. I am sad to report that earlier this evening, our dear president has passed away from the mortal gunshot wound received by suspect John Wilkes Booth, who has been positively identified. President Lincoln is survived by his wife, First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln, who fainted when he took his last breath at 7:22 p.m. Vice President Andrew Johnson was also sworn in as the 17th President of the United States earlier today. Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton is reported to have summoned former spy and investigator Lafayette C. Baker from New York City to take over the investigation, and he is due to arrive tomorrow. An additional suspect, George Atzerodt, has been named after investigators acting on a tip found evidence of his relationship with Booth after searching his room number 126 at the Kirkwood House. The two additional suspects that are being sought for the stabbing of Secretary of State John Seward are still at large. We assume Booth has left across the Navy Yard Bridge into Maryland, where guards stood, not knowing that he had murdered the president. It is also suspected that he may have had additional accomplices other than Atzerodt. Booth is at large. Everyone, be on alert. This is Rena Rome reporting for a UNN emergency news update. Good night. Today is Monday, April 17th, 1865. Good evening. Yesterday, Inspector Lafayette C. Baker arrived by train from New York City and has set out to find President Lincoln's assassins. He immediately posted photographs of all known suspects all around Washington, D.C., as well announced a $100,000 reward for information leading to Booth's arrest. Here is a wanted poster if you want to see one yourself. In further news, boarding house owner Mrs. Mary Surratt was arrested today after suspicions were confirmed that she helped suspect at large John Wilkes Booth and his conspirators by storing their weapons. While she was being questioned by detectives, a man fitting the description of Secretary of State Seward's attacker showed up at the boarding house with a pickaxe. He had since been identified as Mr. Lewis Powell, another Confederate sympathizer, and has been taken into custody. This is Rena Rome reporting for a UNN emergency news update. Good night. Wednesday, April 19th, 1865. Good evening. Breaking news. Today, the nation mourns the loss of our great leader, the 16th President of the United States, President Abraham Lincoln. A private funeral and viewing was held earlier in the East Room of the White House and was attended by 600 distinguished mourners. Afterwards, the President's body and casket was moved in a great procession up the Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol, where over 100,000 additional mourners came to pay their last respects. In the latest news, in the search for President Lincoln's assassins, Inspector Baker's cavalry has identified Maryland Dr. Samuel Mudd as a possible suspect for aiding fugitive John Wilkes Booth and his country farm near the swamps. Apparently, Dr. Mudd's suspicious behavior during the questioning will require further investigation. This was Rena Rome reporting for a UNN News Update. Good night. Today is Friday, April 21st, 1865. Good evening. In breaking news today, President Lincoln's body departed by train from Washington, D.C. to his final resting place at Oak Ridge Cemetery in Springfield, Illinois. He'll be joined by his deceased son, William Wallace Lincoln, whose body has been exhumed after passing away from typhoid fever 3 years ago at the age of 11. In additional news, evidence was discovered that Dr. Samuel Mudd may have helped Booth with a leg injury, possibly sustained when he jumped from the balcony at Ford's Theater on April 14th after shooting the president in the head. Army cavalry investigators discovered one of John Wilkes Booth's riding boots that doctor cut off Booth while tending to his injured leg. They also have confirmed that Booth is traveling with an unknown accomplice. Mudd was immediately taken into custody. Credit is being given Mr. George Mudd, Samuel Mudd's cousin, for information leading to Mudd's arrest. Lead investigator Lafayette C. Baker suspects that Booth and his accomplice may have fled the Mudd farm and may be hiding in the swamps, trying to cross the Potomac River into Virginia. Baker suspects that Booth may be trying to reach the hills of Kentucky or Tennessee, where he will be protected by Confederate sympathizers. Also related news, suspect George Atzerodt has been captured at his cousin's house in Germantown, Maryland, after making public remarks in support of Lincoln's assassination. This is Rena Rome reporting for a UNN Emergency News Update. Good night. Today is Sunday, April 25th, 1865. Good evening. Yesterday, investigator Lafayette C. Baker dispatched the 26 members of the 16th New York Cavalry by the steamship the John S. Ide to Belle Plaine, Virginia, after learning that John Wilkes Booth and his unknown accomplice have indeed crossed the Potomac River into Virginia as he suspected they would. Investigator Baker suspects that they may have taken shelter somewhere in the area. This is Rena Rome reporting for a UNN Emergency News Update. Good night. Monday, April 26, 1865. Good evening. Breaking news. Booth has been captured. The search is over. At 2 a.m. early this morning, the 16th New York Cavalry, acting on a hunch, investigated a farm belonging to Mr. Richard Garrett of Virginia. After speaking with Garrett, they learned that 2 suspects were armed and sleeping in Garrett's barn. After Booth refused to come out, the cavalrymen lit the barn on fire, attempting to entice Booth and his now known accomplice, Mr. David Harold, to come out and surrender. Harold immediately surrendered, yet apparently Booth was not agreeable. As the barn burned, Booth could be heard yelling at the cavalrymen before he was shot through the neck by Sergeant Boston Corbett. Booth was immediately paralyzed and dragged from the barn and died a few hours later. This is Rena Rome reporting for a UNN Emergency News Update. Good night.
General